Hello, this is a session around doing trust fundraising. It's going to provide a really brief overview, and then we'll talk briefly around diversifying income, so finding different ways to raise funds for your CIC, CIO, charity, and so on. Uh, my name's Karen. I'm the Fundraising Development Manager for Lewisham Local, and we do a range of projects, including some that are here. So I've put together these different steps, and we'll be going through each of these. There are similar versions elsewhere. I've put a link there, and if you've got the slides, you can click onto that. You can just do a little search yourself on the internet as well. But these are the steps that I've used over the years. So first of all, you need to find your trust. So we're going to talk through how do you find these grant making trusts, these bodies that are set up to donate money. Then how do you decide which ones to go for? How do you filter them? And then we're going to look at how you've got a shorter list of groups. Then how do you prioritize and record, who you're going to go for? Then how are you going to apply? Some small tips on application. And then hopefully some of them will say yes. So how are you going to retain those ones? And how are you going to reapply? So then it goes not entirely back to the beginning, because obviously you found them already, but it can be a little bit circular there, because you then go back to D, which is, or maybe C, which is prioritizing and recording the updated information you've got about them and reapplying. So step one, we're looking at the steps for trust fundraising, and that is part one of our session today. And then we're going to be talking about finding the trusts. So there is a lot that I could say here. I've put it all into a fact sheet that you can see on the right hand side. But a couple of things that I want to draw out from that help sheet are that the Lewisham Local website has got a list of funding and funders. When you go onto that website, you'll see that there are two different tabs. Funding is the actual fund. So, for example, Awards for All and Reaching Communities are the funds, the little pots that you can apply for. Not so little, actually. They're the pots that you can apply for, that is overseen and run by the National Lottery Community Foundation. So that's the difference. That's just one example of the difference between the funding and the funders. The funder is the lottery, and the funding is the sub pots of money that they've got. That's one thing. Another thing that I particularly want to draw out is using Plinth, which is an AI system to write bids. But also to find funders as well. So you can go on there, and even as part of the free support, you can look up funders. And I would say with anything like this, you will get a big long list. So Plinth, you can't just put the information into Plinth and it will 100% know exactly your project and be able to align you 100%. So you still need to do the following steps that we're going to be talking about. So those are a couple of things to check out. But you've got these places to look for funding, and you maybe are starting to narrow down your search. And that's where you need to filter out those funders that are not relevant to you. So you might filter, and I've borrowed this DEEP acronym from my fundraising development manager colleague. So very grateful to her for that, the FDM for cold spots. So thank you very much for that. And she uses the acronym DEEP, checking out what the deadline is. If they're a closed project, or if the deadline is ages away. you might not look at them straight away. You might put them on, you might record them, which is our next step. But yes, in particular, I want to focus on the eligibility, exclusions, and project fit. So it's really, really essential to check the eligibility. We can get excited when we read the headline of a trust and think, excellent, yippee, I will go for this. And you start writing and you spend hours on it, and your colleagues have spent hours on it, and then you realise, oh, I'm a CIC and actually they only support charities, and you've wasted all that time. So really do check through the eligibility and check through the exclusions. So it's the ease of the deep that I particularly want you to focus on, and then whether it fits with your project. So they may want particular things. So there may be different reasons why it fits or does not fit. I used to work for a temperance society, for example, which would not take money from alcohol foundations, for example. Does it fit with your values, your ethos? So you can see on the right here, there's more information on there, and that's got some more questions. And on the side, it says, is it a deal breaker? So if you're not answering those questions in a favourable way in relation to a particular fund, then move on to the next one. Yes. Next slide. So it's still under steps for trust fundraising. B, we're going to prioritise and record. And some of this is around that deadline thing of that deep that we just did. But you need to be able to prioritise and have a record of this, because although you might think that, well, this is a me thing, at the time I'm engrossed in a particular funder, I'm getting the feel for them, getting to know them. But in a few months' time, that's going to be old history. I've done the application and it's all forgotten. So I need a place to record it all. And if you haven't got a database, then an Excel spreadsheet, if you're a smaller organisation, an Excel spreadsheet will do the job fine. So I have got a sample Excel spreadsheet that I can send to Lewisham Groups. And there's a bit of information on this sheet about that. So you want to pop the information into the Excel spreadsheet. There's some bits on the sheet there that tell you, on the help sheet, that tell you what kind of things you might want to put into your Excel spreadsheet. The key on that is prioritising. So you might particularly want to have a column that says, when is your action month? And every month you can work out when you're going to be busy, when you particularly need to work. So if a funder, a relatively small fund, has a deadline of the mid-April, I might want to put the month before as my action month. That's when I'm going to start working on it. And then every month I check through, okay, what am I doing in March? Okay, right, I need to start work on that funder. And that helps you to prioritise in terms of the timing. But then you look through your March list and you realise actually you've got more trusts than you can possibly apply to. So then how do you prioritise that list? Well, if you've ranked them when you've done your deep check, you might want to rank them out of 5 or 10. You need to decide whether 1 is high or low, but maybe 1 is low. So I look through, I've got a list of March funders to apply to. Here's the jobs that I'm doing in March, and which one's the most important? Oh, okay, I've got a number of 5s. I've ranked them 5. I think they're the best fit for me. And then I've got some 4s. I'm going to work on those ones next, and so on down the list. So it really helps you to prioritise which one's the most important. And that priority, you'll have different elements as to why you prioritise those as important. I don't have time to do everything here today, but obviously it's to do with the best fit, it's to do with whether they're offering a big amount of money, that sort of thing. So when you come to apply, I suggest that you gather everything you can about that funder, from their website, you might want to look on their annual accounts. You'll look at the old information that you've got if you've applied to them before. All of your research bring into one place, and particularly prioritise what they're telling you. Then you traffic light it. So you have red. I think this is on the next slide. Yes, a red is a must-have. And some of this will have come out in your deep checking, but if it's a must-have, if they say you must be working on the Isle of Wight and you're working in Lewisham, you need to stop there. You must stop, because that's one of their must-haves and you're not fulfilling it. And you can feel a bit down about this, but don't, because actually it's really saving you time. And then amber is your should-haves. So, for example, they might support work with food groups and music groups, and it might be a food or music groups, in which case, yes, you do food work, so you can apply. Or it might be that it has to be food and music. So just work out, whether you get like extra points, if you like, for achieving both of those, or whether it's just one of those. Then green is go and find out more. So you need to go and work out maybe extra detail, because the budget is going to change slightly, so you need to speak to your finance person, or you need to go and research some more information off the internet around statistics on needs and so on. So just allow yourself time to do all of these things, and think about having, the funder deadline. You've put that in your calendar already, hopefully. You've done your reminder on your phone, whatever it is you need to do to be belts and braces about meeting that final deadline. But in addition, I want to encourage you to add in some fake deadlines beforehand. So when's your fake deadline for your finance person to give you that information for the budget? When's that fake deadline to do your first draft? So add in those fake deadlines. And obviously you're prioritising those ones that are the most important ones. Okay, so hopefully you've done your application. I have got a whole heap of help sheets from where I used to work, giving you some sample answers and things like that. I also have something called a fundraising hub, which provides some common questions that funders ask, and you can plumb in all of your answers to that. Another option is that you use something like Plinth, and it helps you using AI to answer some questions. So you've done your application and they've said yes, congratulations. So how are you going to retain that group? And these are really precious groups to you. They've believed in you and giving you some money. So you want to look after them. And because you've done all that work to research them, so how are you going to then, they've honoured you, you honour them. How are you going to do that? Well, you're going to make sure that you meet their monitoring requirements as much as possible. So hopefully when you did your original research, you checked that you were happy with what monitoring was required. Sometimes they'll send some information through and say, oh, you've got this money, like we've awarded you this money on condition that you fulfill XYZ monitoring. And at that stage you do need to check, it's called acceptance and refusal of donations by the Charity Commission, but you do need to decide yes or no whether you're happy with those monitoring requirements. Other funders, they'll just send you the money, so that might not be a step. But check out what monitoring they require and diarise that, so you can put that into your Excel spreadsheet of month to action month. So the monitoring is required. Again, it might be required in April. So then you put in, maybe you want to do a double check that you've started to record all this monitoring information. So you might not even want to put March as when you're monitoring. You might want to put much earlier in the year. Okay, so you check that your monitoring is sorted, and then do the things that they've definitely required of you, and then ask yourself, is there anything else that I can do to build that relationship? So, for example, when I worked for an organisation, we had a Christmas play that we used to put on, and I'd invite funders along to that if it was appropriate. So I'd make sure that I had some staff or volunteers on hand to look after them if I couldn't do it, if there were a couple of them. So I might have a trustee sort of to look after them, to make sure that they got their drinks okay and stuff like that, and just sort of sit with them during the performance. So that built those relationships. Now, not a lot of trusts came along to that. However, for those that did, it was really good and really helpful. And for those who didn't, they'd had that option. So, hopefully we stood out from some of the other places, because we showed an interest in kind of building that relationship. We offered them the chance to meet us, and for us to hear from them and them to hear from us. That's what a relationship is, isn't it? So yeah, that's why you've got this lovely picture of a little heart, because how are we going to share the love? Then hopefully you've looked after these trusts, you've done all your monitoring, and then you look to see whether you can reapply. So again, putting that information into the Excel spreadsheet as to when you can reapply, and make sure you maintain all of the information. So you want all of the information about what you applied for last time, any interactions, they came to the Christmas play, blah, blah, blah. And so then you have that all for when you reapply. And this is when trust fundraising actually starts to sort of be even more worthwhile, because the next year you can reapply probably with most of the same information, unless they have changed their criteria or unless they're particularly looking for innovative work. But yeah, there will probably be bits from your original application, which you know is successful, that you can reuse. I'm going to do a little offshoot here for those where it's not successful. And again, still make sure you're maintaining your records, because then you can see, okay, this is one that didn't work. Is there a different project I could do to apply for that would fit better? Will they let me phone them up and ask that question, and so on? So yeah, even if you don't get the funding, if they contact you, you can ask, why didn't I, kindly ask, are there any reasons? Are there any ways that I can improve my application, and so on? So yes. Then this is the next section, thinking bigger than trusts. And here we have a three-legged stool, and there are lots of different options for raising funds. And sometimes people only think about trust fundraising. So if you have a stool with three legs, it's much more stable than a stool with one leg. If you've only got a stool with a trust fundraising leg, that's not enough. It's going to wobble and fall over. So ideally you might have a leg of trust fundraising, you might have individual fundraising, and you might have fee fundraising. Also fee, that's not fundraising, but just fee earning. And then decide what income streams to go for. So think about the pros and cons, and think about the fit with you. So I've put in here, for example, legacies. It's a really great return on investment, i.e. the amount of money that you put in is a lot less than the amount of money you're going to get out. So if you spend an hour on doing legacy income, and you're your hourly rate is £20 an hour, you're probably going to get much more back from that than the amount that you put in. So a con is it takes years. It may take years to get the money back, to get some money in from it. And maybe you don't have the training. So in our situation, lack of confidence in the team. So maybe you don't know quite all the legalities around it and so on. So do you just add it to the plan? Okay, this person has decided no. So this is just a sample one to show you how to fill out this table. And then there's a return on investment slide here. And it is really hard to say how much, if you worked on trusts and foundations or individuals, so on, how much you would get back for every hour or every amount that you put in. But this gives you a rough guide that trusts and foundations is going to give you a better return on the amount of effort and money you put in than individuals, according to this. And as it says there, you can look at that legacy one, the return on investment for that, according to the Chartered Institute of Fundraising, can be £33 for every pound that you put in. So it's not the only thing to think about, but it is worth thinking about in terms of prioritising your time. Community events is relatively low. However, it's still more than you put in. And it might be that you've got a really good community group, lots of local people, and you've got lots of volunteers. So you might still want to go for that. It's just something to bear in mind. So, for example, if you were running a community event and they started to say, oh, you need to pay for the hall and it's going to cost a lot in drinks, it might be cancelled because of X, Y, Z. An outdoor event might be cancelled if it rains and you lose all that money. So it's about sort of managing that risk. So if there was time during the session, I would allow time to do fill out the table for yourselves, and then talk through all the other support that's available. So weekly during term time, there's a Friday fundraising club that meets online 1 till 2, and that's a really good hop-on point to find out more. It's over Zoom, and that is regularly advertised on the Friday Fundraising Club WhatsApp group. All of that is covered in the brochure, page 2 onwards, so do check that out. Friday Fundraising Club is just one example of the light touch work that I do that is open to all Lewisham CIC, CIOs, charities and other community groups. If you're a business, then on the back page of the brochure is a link to some of the work that the council provides for businesses and entrepreneurs. So the brochure has all that lovely light touch work, and then there's also in-depth work which is called Fundraising Plus, and people apply to that. So it's really handy if there's a good group in the light touch work. Hopefully they'll find out about whether they want to be part of the Fundraising Plus work. You can just apply to it cold, but it does help if you know me, I know you. It helps you to work out whether you want to go for it or not. And then other fundraising development managers are available in the borough, and there is a link there, and we do a regular newsletter. So that's all. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope the washing machine wasn't too loud, but yeah, I hope that was helpful. Thank you.